It's very nice to be here, and I'd first of all like to thank the organisers for giving me the opportunity to tell you about some of our research at Nottingham. I'll talk about our cancer centre and tell you a little bit about the cancer centre and what we do, and then but specifically focusing on cholangiocarcinoma research. Then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about our plans for the future of that centre, especially as regards to cholangiocarcinoma, and also tell you a little bit about our educational programs, because I'm very proud of some of our educational programs that we're doing as well. So just to give you a brief overview of the work of the Cancer Centre at Nottingham, we have a physical base, which is in this new building in the central picture there, which is part of something called the Biodiscovery Institute, and we're part of that institute. But we are a sort of virtual hub as well, because we link together cancer research that's occurring across the whole of the Nottingham region and beyond. So we have three hospitals that link into this cancer centre. We have Nottingham City Hospital, the Queen's Medical Centre, and the Royal Derby Hospital. They're all part of this cancer centre. And the centre is headed by Professor Dave Bates. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. And I'm the Deputy Director. Dave couldn't be here today, so you get me instead. But we heard about the Queen's Medical Centre yesterday in terms of treatment in some of the talks yesterday. So I'm not going to talk much about clinical work because I'm not a clinician. I'm going to focus more on our basic and translational research. So we have the three hospitals that feed into the cancer centre, but we also have cancer research labs spread out over the university campus. So we have on University Park, which is our main campus, we have lots of different labs doing cancer research. We also have a clinical trials unit, which is really great because it will help to facilitate the transfer of our work from the basic setting into the translational setting. And we also have a large number of university spin-out companies as well, which also do the same thing, which commercialize our research. All of this is headed by Dave Bates, as I mentioned at the beginning, and many of you will know Dave because he also works on cholangiocarcinoma, as do I. So just to mention a couple of the sort of highlights of the overall cancer research, we have two independent research centres, but they're part of our under our wider umbrella of cancer sciences. We have the Children's Brain Cancer Research Centre, which brings together all of the people working in that area, and it's a very successful centre. We also have the Nottingham Breast Cancer Research Centre, which brings together researchers in that area. So these are really good models for how we would like to take forward cholangiocarcinoma research at Nottingham in the form of an independent research group. Today, I'll just give you a snapshot of some of the cholangiocarcinoma research that's going on in this centre. We have a very large number of clinicians and basic scientists working there. But I'll just tell you a little bit about some of the cholangiocarcinoma work. I'll talk about these 7 people here, but about 6 different research projects. So I'll be very brief and I won't keep you for a long time. But first of all, I'll just tell you about our clinical work. I'll give you an example of our clinical work. I'm not going to talk about every project. I've just chosen a few that I think highlight the different aspects of what we do. So Danny Gomez leads up this project, which is looking at the correlation between social deprivation and overall survival for cholangiocarcinoma. This study is ongoing, and it's a multi-center study which is taking place over 17 different centers. The data has been collected and from over 700 patients recruited into this study, and the analysis of that should be published later this year. So that's a very exciting project in the sort of clinical sphere. Also in the clinical sphere, we have histopathology, which is headed by Dr. Abik Mukherjee. The work that Abik does and his team is of vital importance because it provides the samples that are used obviously for diagnosis and patient treatment, but also that then feed in to our different research groups across the university and beyond. So the work of Abik's team allows us to look at functional studies, so looking at, for example, the creation of primary cell cultures and 3D models. I'll talk a little bit more about 3D models later in this talk. But it also involves a whole range of other studies, so biomarker discovery, for example, digital pathology, where one of the things that I'm very excited about, and I know that other people are very excited about, is very ultra-high resolution analysis of tumor tissues. That's an area that we couldn't do without the tissues that are supplied by Abik and his team. It also allows digital pathology, so that's again, I think, something that's going to be talked about later in this session, and it allows us to spread the sort of research efforts that we do across the whole university campus. Obviously, it also allows molecular pathology as well, so the sequencing of these tumor samples to look for mutations and other aspects of tumor biology like overexpression, which I'll get onto later as well. And it supports the work of the clinical trials unit as well. So that's a really important role for histopathology. Another of our clinical colleagues is Dr. Izzy Omar Abungwe, and I'm not going to talk about her work because she's speaking in this session. I'll just say that Izzy is looking at the interaction between immune cells and cancer cells and their importance in cholangiocarcinoma, and she's going to be speaking in a few minutes. I also won't talk much about the work of Professor Sheila Jayaraman. Sheila is interested in gene regulatory networks and how they are important in cholangiocarcinoma and other disease states as well. And she'll be telling you about this work later. I'm not going to go through it because she's in the audience, and also she's going to be speaking in a few minutes. But I will take some time to tell you a little bit about this project. This is work that's a collaboration between Dr. Anna Grabowska and Dave Bates, who I mentioned at the beginning. Anna and Dave are interested in trying to develop new, more clinically relevant models of cholangiocarcinoma so that we can test drugs or new potential drugs in environments that are more similar to what we see in tumors, and that will hopefully be more representative of what's going on in a tumor than simply looking at cells growing in plastic dishes. So the way they do that is manifold, but what they do in principle is that they take the tissues that are coming from our clinical collaborators, and they grow those in animal models as in immunodeficient mice as things called xenografts, which allow us to grow those human tissues in an animal setting. And then they can use those tissues to study how the cancers behave. They also take those cancer cells and grow them in 3D cell culture, which is a way of, trying to mimic the cancer microenvironment, and that allows us to, again, study the interaction between the cancer cells and other cells that are present within the tumor. So, for example, they've got a project down at the bottom. They're looking at the influence of mesenchymal stem cells on cholangiocarcinoma cell proliferation. And I think this is very exciting work because it's a step closer to the development of new therapeutics. Finally, I'll just talk for 2 minutes about my work. So my group is interested in how changes in cell behavior occur. So how cells decide to change what they're doing and do something else, i.e. to maybe start proliferating or to move to a different part of the body. And we focus on that in 2 different settings. Firstly, in tumorigenesis, which is obviously why I'm here and why I'm part of the Cancer Center. And also in a disease state called intimal thickening, which is something which occurs in cardiovascular disease. But mostly I'm focused on tumorigenesis. This graph shows the expression of a protein kinase, which is one of the main things that I'm interested in at the moment. Protein kinase CK2 is highly expressed in a variety of different cancer types. The first bars that I can show you over there, don't know if I can point at it. Yeah, here, this is cholangiocarcinoma, and this is the expression level of the casein kinase 2 messenger RNA. Messenger RNA level closely resembles the protein expression level as well. But you can see that in cholangiocarcinoma, which is the first cancer shown here, there's a very high expression of CK2 in cholangiocarcinoma. But this protein is highly expressed in lots of other tumor types as well, which are all the other red bars along this whole long list of different types of cancer. And I think it's something that we sort of forget. We all focus on mutations that occur in cancer. But things like this are important too. This protein is not mutated in cancers. It's highly expressed in cancers. And being highly expressed creates the vulnerability. So casein kinase 2 is an oncoprotein. If it's overexpressed in a cell, it can turn that cell into a cancer cell. It's not mutated in cancers, but it is highly expressed. But it still creates that vulnerability. So that's one of the reasons that we're interested in it. So we're working with inhibitors that stop this enzyme from working. The enzyme is required for cell proliferation, and it's also required for DNA repair as well. So we think that if we can inhibit this enzyme, we can block the growth of cells and stop them from growing. If we add these inhibitors, they will also induce a process called apoptosis, which is a form of cell suicide, where cells commit suicide so that they're no longer present in the tumor. And both of these things combined are useful in cancer treatment. We're not trying to use CCA2 inhibitors on their own. We're trying to combine them with other drugs. So, for example, if you have drugs such as cisplatin that induce DNA damage, that induces a DNA damage response, and CCA2 inhibitors will block that DNA damage response. And so, of course, if you combine CCA2 inhibitors with cisplatin and other things that damage DNA, you get enhanced killing of the tumor cells. And we're trying to develop that in terms of cholangiocarcinoma treatments, potential treatments in the future anyway. So that's a very whistle-stop overview of some of our research projects in the area of cholangiocarcinoma research. I just want to take a final minute to tell you about our future plans for the center and for cholangiocarcinoma research more specifically. So the whole point of the center is to enhance the collaborative links between our clinical colleagues and and people like me who are more sort of translational or fundamental scientists. And the principal way that we do that is through the exchange of tissue samples, and that's incredibly important for everything that we do. But more long-term, what we would like to do is to influence the future clinical and non-clinical appointments in Nottingham so that we make sure that this center that we're creating, this center of excellence that we're trying to create, has legs and it will run long after people like me have retired and stopped working in this area. We want to make sure that this center keeps going into the future. So that's why we're trying to build this independent center that will focus on cholangiocarcinoma. And the idea being, of course, that it will be a self-sustaining center of excellence that will just carry on into the future. Finally, I'd like to tell you about our plans for something innovative that we're doing in the area of our remit, which is as well as doing research, of course, but also to train the next generation of cancer researchers. And as part of that, about 4 years ago now, we decided to start some undergraduate degree programs in cancer sciences. Cancer sciences, more generally, can be defined as the science that underpins cancer. That includes things like fundamental research, but also drug discovery and patient care. So that's bringing together all of those different areas in an undergraduate degree course. And we're the first university in the UK to do a program such as this, starting from scratch to make a new program like this. And we're incredibly proud of this program. Basically, it teaches biomedical sciences, but with a focus on cancer, including cholangiocarcinoma. So we make sure that cholangiocarcinoma is covered in this course, and we were lucky enough to have Helen come and give a talk to our students a few months ago, which was very inspirational to our students. So the idea of this course is to give these students a thorough training in cancer sciences, and then they'll go on to clinical careers and non-clinical careers. It's been really incredibly popular with students. We started in 2019 with 21 students on this program, and in 2021 we had 57 students on the program. This year, numbers of applications have gone through the roof. I think we're beginning to be known nationally, and this year we've had 337 applications so far. So we might end up with too many students this year, but it's a great way of getting students interested in cancer sciences, and then hopefully going on to careers, as I said, postgraduate education and also into clinical careers. So with that, I'll stop and thank you for your attention. I hope I've given you an insight into what we're doing, and now I'll hand over to our people who are doing the actual more research-focused stuff. Thank you.